Alrighty, good morning everybody. I hope you guys all had a fantastic summer and are excited to get back into your math classes. If I'm correct, at the time that you'll be seeing this, your first day of school will have been yesterday, so hopefully that was good. But yeah, so as it stands, I am going to be your math teacher hopefully for the whole year. So in this first video, what I basically wanted to do is go over the topics that we're going to cover over the course of the year. So first I'll go through this list of topics, then I'll talk about a little bit more about how each assignment and test and all that kind of stuff is going to work. And then if you guys have any questions, just kind of leave it down in the comments or something, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope the sound of my fan isn't getting in the way of me speaking too much, so hopefully you guys can hear me all right. But yeah, I'm just going to go through these topics, and then we'll see where things go from there. So basically, the topics that I've written down here are going to be the things that you'll be tested on. Basically, I've sort of drawn up a plan for how the year is going to go, and these are sort of the names I've given for each of the test topics. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do multiplication and division, like the long way, so long multiplication, long division, and a new way of doing multiplication that I didn't really learn, or definitely didn't teach you guys before this, but it's something I picked up very recently, so I'm going to try and cover that here as well, and maybe you guys will prefer that over the long multiplication that we've done before. Once we do multiplication and division, there will be a test on it. Test might be a little bit of a harsh word. It's more like a quiz, I suppose. I haven't actually made any of the tests or the assignments yet, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So our first kind of major topic is going to be multiplication and division. And then our second topic is going to be lowest common multiple and highest common factor. Those I'll probably abbreviate as we go on to LCM and HCF. And those, it's not necessarily a full topic on its own, like there aren't a ton of questions I can give you on that, but it's more of it's a useful thing to be able to do with numbers, given any 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers, to be able to find their lowest common multiple and their highest common factor. And we'll talk more about what that stuff means when we get to that unit. And then there'll just be a little bit of a quiz at the end of it to see how much of that you guys understood. Once we do that, we'll move on to fractions and decimals. And I find that this business, this lowest common multiple stuff, can be very useful when you're working with fractions. So that's why I want to cover it before we get to fractions and decimals. And being able to convert between fractions and decimals is always a good thing to be able to do, because we encounter a lot of fractions and decimals in daily life, so that's a sort of an application of math that becomes applicable to you guys in your day-to-day lives, that this is something that you should be able to do, is like understand fractions and convert them from one form to another, and convert them into decimals, and convert decimals back into fractions. That's all stuff that you should be able to do, just because it will be useful in your daily life. So once we do those three topics, we'll move on to exponents, square roots, and logarithms. So there are some words there that maybe you've heard before, maybe you haven't. Last year we did talk a little bit about exponents, but we didn't really do a proper unit on it, and I think you guys would benefit from doing a proper unit on it before we get into something like quadratics or something later on. So we'll do a unit where we talk about exponents, and logarithms is basically it's related closely to exponents. You guys will see what I mean when we get to that. But exponents and logarithms are very, very closely related, so don't be freaked out by the term. Once you understand one, you should be able to understand the other one fairly easily. And the last thing here with square roots, specifically, I'm going to teach you guys how to solve square roots manually, like using a pen and paper. So the same way that you can do long multiplication and long division without needing a calculator, and you can just write down all the steps and get an answer that's correct. So there's a similar thing for square roots. So I'm going to show you guys that, and then you guys will get an opportunity to practice that, and then there'll be something like that on the test as well. So once we finish that, we'll move on to algebra down here. So that'll be more like we'll focus on working with variables, so we'll introduce the idea of a variable, which we talked about last year, but we'll sort of refresh our memory on that. What a variable is, working with math problems that have just one variable and figuring out what that variable is. We'll also do stuff with word problems, so where I give you like a situation, and you have to figure out from the situation what the equation is, what the unknown quantity is, and how you can figure out what that quantity is actually equal to. So that's all stuff that we'll do in algebra, and then that'll lead us right into linear functions, which is that y equals mx plus b stuff that we did last year. So that'll be sort of a natural progression from algebra, and some of the stuff in these two units over here, linear algebra and quadratics, will be a bit of a repeat from last year, but it'll have been like close to a year, or maybe even over a year at that time since you last saw it. So we'll review it almost as though it's the first time, and then you guys will get a chance to practice more with assignments and stuff like that. So after linear functions, we'll move on to quadratics. That was the stuff with parabolas and that ax squared plus bx plus c. I'll teach you guys a couple of things that we didn't do last year, like the quadratic formula. It's all very useful and very interesting stuff, and hopefully you guys get a solid understanding of how that stuff works. And then after that, we'll move on to trigonometry, just kind of like we did towards the end of last school year with that trig table and the sine, cosine, tangent functions and all of that stuff. There won't necessarily be a quiz on that trig table, but I might change my mind about that. But yeah, so it'll be sort of, these three will sort of be a refresher on last year, and some of these things will be things you've seen before, but I want to sort of go over these things that'll help be sort of a foundation, and then we'll revisit those concepts from last year. So last year you kind of saw those things for the first time, but didn't necessarily have all of this in place. So now hopefully you'll have a more solid understanding of how all these things work, and then we'll apply these ideas over there to linear functions, quadratics, and trigonometry. So as of right now, the way I've sort of set this up, this only actually gets me, all these topics only actually get me to about the end of March. So after that, there'll still be about 2 more months for new topics. Now obviously this is just like a plan that I've made, where I've just written lesson title after lesson title, and I'm just planning, okay, we'll do this lesson, then we'll do this many practice questions, and then we'll do, we'll have a review day and a test day, and I've tried to factor all of that in, and this is getting me to the end of March. But you guys know I talk a lot more than I think I'm going to, and then we fall behind. So I've set aside a lot of extra days to do practice problems, and I might still be able to make videos where I'm just doing practice questions over and over and over again, but those might not be things that you necessarily see in class. It might be more stuff that you can like check out on a weekend or in the evening or sometime outside of class time, that I'll still try and make them and post them, but not necessarily all of that stuff that I've planned right now will end up being taught in the classes. So this might actually, if I end up taking long enough to get through these topics, this might actually carry us through to the end of the school year. If it doesn't, I'll figure out a little bit later on, depending on how close I'm able to stick to the schedule, what I want to do after that. Right now I'm thinking of introducing you guys to the idea of derivatives, which is sort of the start of calculus, and that's normally something that would be taught in grade 12. But basically, so the idea of derivatives isn't actually that hard. Like the math of it is fairly easy to understand how to do the problem. The ideas are a little bit more advanced, but they're not insanely complicated. So I think we might do a little bit of that towards the end of the school year, and there'll be like a question of it on your final exam or something. But it's really interesting stuff, and it's sort of a new perspective on all the math that you've done before. So it's different from all of this math. We're not just taking numbers and plugging it into a thing and getting an answer. It's different from all of that. So hopefully if we're able to get to that you guys find that really interesting. What I'm going to try to do this year, since it's going to be videos for basically the entire year, at least the way it looks right now, my plan is that every Friday I'll have an assignment ready for you guys, so hopefully by the middle of the week I can send that assignment to one or all of your teachers that are there with you, and then they can print out copies for you guys. So Fridays in class, you guys will be able to work on the assignment during the class time, so there won't necessarily be a video on it. I might make like a short, like 5-minute video that just has all the assignment questions in case you guys aren't able to get those printed copies in time. But basically there'll be a lesson Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday will be an assignment day. For at least for the start of the year, most of the weeks will look something like that. That is another difference from last year, is now we've got 4 math classes a week instead of just 3. So that gives us more time to go through some more of these topics in a little bit more detail, so hopefully we don't fall too far behind, and hopefully we get time towards the end of the year to cover that introduction to calculus and stuff. But yeah, so basically every Friday you guys will get an opportunity to work on an assignment, and then that assignment will usually be due in class the following Tuesday. So if there's an assignment that you guys are working on Friday, then it'll be due the following Tuesday, and I'll send a marking scheme, or I'll mark them and send the marks back to you guys, just so you can see, how much am I understanding, how much am I not. So I'm going to try to be more regular with the assignments this year than last year. We didn't do so much in the way of assignments. We did a lot of examples in class and then like 1 or 2 homework questions. I'm going to try to be much more regular with that, and we will still do a lot of assignments here on the board. That being said though, tests I'm thinking will be roughly every 3 weeks. For some of them, like this unit, this lowest common multiple, highest common factor stuff, tends to be a little bit shorter than some of the other things, so this one is only going to be like 2 weeks long. But then as we get over to those units up over there, some of them will get a little bit longer, so we might spend 4 weeks on a topic, things like that. If you got like a winter break in the middle, then obviously we'll have like 6 weeks in between 2 tests, or at least 5 weeks, something like that. Yeah, so tests will be roughly every 3 weeks, and the tests, the way I've currently set it up, will always be on a Tuesday. So your first math class of the week will be the day that you have a test. And before every test, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to have a test review scheduled in for the Friday before that test. And I'm also going to try, if I'm free enough over the weekend, I'm going to try to make a YouTube live stream for you guys to just tune in and ask any questions at some point over the weekend, and I'll let you guys know before that test what time during the weekend that might actually be. But yeah, so the tests will be every 3-ish weeks. There'll be a test review before every single one. There'll be a couple of days before the test review that we're just doing more and more practice questions. And I'm going to try to do that live stream in case you guys still have questions on the Saturday, Sunday, or maybe even the Monday, we'll see, before a given test. So hopefully all of that is clear. In this first video, I'm not going to start on any of the topics, so I'm just going to talk a little bit more about how the school year in general, how this class is going to kind of go. So I'm going to try to keep all the videos about 25-ish minutes long. Some of them might be a little bit closer to 20, some of them might be a little bit closer to 30, but what I'm hoping is that we can, if I can keep them short enough, then that gives you guys time to get through the full video, one full video every class. And it's going to be a little bit tricky to make sure that they're not so long that you guys aren't able to get through a full video in a class, but also not so short that you guys run out of videos with nothing new already ready for you. So it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act trying to figure that out, but right now I'm going to sort of target 25-minute videos for every lesson, and then we'll see after a week or two, are you guys ahead of the game, or are you behind, or where exactly do we stand? And then I'll sort of adjust the lesson times according to that. Also, as you guys know, I'll just start talking, and I'll just talk a lot, and I might go off on a tangent because I'm getting really into a topic. So if that happens and we fall behind because of something like that, then things like the test review and the test and stuff, I might just push everything back by a day, or by a couple of days, or maybe even a week if we're falling that far behind, just so I can keep the rest of the schedule kind of in order. So yeah, so hopefully all of that makes sense. Yeah, so those assignments, I'm going to try to have those to you by the middle of every week, and you can work on them on the Friday in class. There might be, if you guys are ahead of the game and you finish all the previous videos for the assignment on like the Thursday, then you guys could start the assignment on the Thursday itself and then continue on the Friday. And if you guys are really ahead on the videos but maybe behind on the assignments, then you could just use whatever time kind of works for you. What I'm hoping is that if you guys are falling behind on the videos but not by a lot, that maybe you guys could get caught up like during breaks or something. But if that doesn't happen, that's fine. So we'll work out all the kinks with the timing as we kind of go along, and with marking the assignments and getting those back to you and things like that. If you guys do find that you have any questions about some of the material that we're covering, just send me an email and I will be sure to get back to you. If you guys don't have my email, then maybe the easiest thing to do would be to just look up the video. Especially the best way would be to look up the video in which you struggled and first try rewatching it, and then if that still doesn't help, then leave a comment so that I at least know what the topic is, and then maybe I can make another video that you can look up over the weekend, or if all of you are struggling, take a class and watch something like that to sort of get caught up on it. But yeah, if you guys are getting stuck with anything, let me know so that I can make more videos to sort of compensate for that. And that's the struggle with trying to figure out, one, the timing, but also how well do you guys understand it. If I don't know how well you guys are understanding it, then I can't just go and race ahead and make all the videos for the whole school year like this week or something, because then you guys will just have all of these videos and all of these questions to go along with them, and I won't have made any extra videos supplying answers to those questions. So I'm going to just try and keep the videos a few videos sort of ahead of where we're supposed to be, but not so far ahead that you guys are getting lost and I'm forgetting what we did in that section and all of that stuff. So basically, if you guys have a question, let me know as soon as you can so that I can make some sort of arrangement to go over that material a second time. If I'm still not getting through to you, then I can maybe link another YouTube video to you guys for you to watch in one class in place of one of these videos, just so that you get a taste of another way of it being explained. But yeah, things like that. So I'll just recap this stuff one more time, and then in the next video we'll get a more proper start on the actual topics. So we'll start off with multiplication and division. We'll move on to lowest common multiple, highest common factor. Then we'll do fractions and decimals. Then we'll do exponents, solving square roots by hand, and logarithms. Then we'll do algebra, linear functions, quadratics, and trig. Your assignments will be every Friday, but not all the time. In the first few weeks you'll have the assignments on the Friday, and you'll work on them and they'll be due the following Tuesday. After a couple of weeks you'll have your first test review, and then there will be the occasional unit where I just do 4 lessons in the week instead of doing 3 lessons and an assignment. So there will be some weeks that you just don't have an assignment or a test review, and you get that week kind of off. But yeah, so hopefully all of this is making sense. I've tried to stretch this video just long enough that it can sort of cover the whole class. But yeah, hopefully all of this is making sense and sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to getting started with some of these topics and to showing you some of the new things that I've learned sort of over the last few months for how to cover some of these things. I'll try to keep you guys posted on things like the tests, the live streams, the assignments, all of that kind of stuff. I don't think there's anything I'm forgetting, but let me just check in case there is. Yeah, I might switch up the order of some of these topics as we go along if I think that it might be better in a different order, or like if I teach highest common factor before lowest common multiple, things like that, then I'll let you guys know as we get closer to that. The one thing that I did forget to mention is that as of right now, I've scheduled all of these different topics and their different test dates and stuff, and just so you get an idea of how many assignments there are, the tentative schedule that I've got right now says that between now and the end of March, you guys will have about 13 or 14 assignments. So 13 or 14 assignments and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tests. So about one test every 3 weeks, and then assignments will be like 1 to 2 weeks apart, that you'll be working on them on the Friday, and they'll always be due the following Tuesday, unless there's something iffy with the schedule with like bank holidays and days off and things like that that I haven't factored in yet. Then we can change those things around. So it might be a little bit confusing at the start, but for now all I can really say is these are the topics that we'll cover, and this is sort of the ideal plan, is to set it up this way, with every Friday being a time for you to work on the assignments, and every test being on a Tuesday, so that you guys have the a few days to study. And I'm hopefully going to have time to run those live streams as well, just so that you guys can have your questions answered before the test. So I hope I haven't repeated myself too much, and I hope I haven't confused you or scared you with any of these words. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into our first unit, which is multiplication and division. So we will start that in the next video. See you then.